How deadly can football or soccer, depending on where you're from, really be? Okay, look, I wouldn't want to be tackled by Sergio Ramos either, but what I'm about to talk about is a lot more extreme. Okay, this is Honduras and El Salvador. And in 1969, a World Cup qualifier ignited a conflict between these two nations that resulted in a war known as the Football War. Except this wasn't just fought on the pitch, this was a full blown military conflict. Okay, so to understand this war, we need to go back to the roots of tensions between El Salvador and Honduras. So, in the 1960s, mass migration from El Salvador to Honduras created national friction. So, thousands of Salvadoran farmers moved up to Honduras looking for land and work, also because their country is very densely populated. And by 1969, Salvadorans made up about 20% of the Honduran population. And this created a lot of competition for jobs, land, resources, and Hondurans weren't very happy about this. On top of that, Honduras had land reform policies that evicted Salvadoran families, which created even more hostility. And tensions were really high at this point, but they were about to get even worse. So in June of 1969, both nations faced off in a World Cup qualifier match. But like more national sports matches, it's more than just a game. It's about national pride and winning for your country. So the first match was played in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, which is the capital, and it ended with a 1-0 win for Honduras, but Salvadoran fans were harassed and tensions between the two sides started to boil. The second match was played in San Salvador, and it was no better. El Salvador won 3-0, and things got even uglier. Honduran flags were burned, and their fans were harassed, and the atmosphere was just filled with hostility. The third match took place in Mexico City, where El Salvador won 3-2, clinching a spot in the 1970 World Cup, but the tension didn't end just after the final whistle blew. Because this wasn't just a victory for El Salvador, this was a humiliating loss for Honduras, and national pride took a hit. And within days of the match, things took a dramatic turn. On July 14, 1969, El Salvador launched a military offensive against Honduras, and the invasion started with airstrikes and ground assaults, and it targeted Honduran cities like Nueva Ocotepeque and Choluteca. The violence spread, and Honduras retaliated with airstrikes of its own, and what started as a soccer match now was a full-scale war. The football war lasted 4 days, hence the name 100-Hour War, which is its other name, by the way. And while the fighting was fierce, it was short-lived, but casualties were high. Roughly 2,000 people were killed, and the majority of them were civilians. In addition, this fighting displaced thousands, and particularly Salvadorans who were living in Honduras, who fled back to El Salvador. By July 18th, the Organization of American States brokered a ceasefire. The fighting stopped, but there were still underlying issues between the two countries, and they were not even close to resolved. A territorial dispute between the two nations still remained unresolved after the war, and it wasn't until 1992, more than 2 decades later, that the International Court of Justice ruled on the border dispute, just showing how bad relations were. Now both countries have significantly improved their relations, and in a way, football has become a unifying force rather than a dividing one. The countries' rivalry is generally friendly, and regional cooperation is maintained. What do you guys think? Do you think there could be another football war coming up in coming years? Let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe.